Well guys, we have come to the end. The final episode of Why Diets Fail. It's episode 2 of Why Diets Fail. It's episode 3 of Why Diets Fail, Return of the Science.
What I'm talking about might save your life someday, okay?
Okay, Mr. Mackey, okay.
Okay.
That energy gap is sensed by the body and causes the body to make these adjustments.
You can't laugh. You can't laugh. You can't laugh. You gotta do it again.
I can just do this part.
Yeah, you can just do that.
We're going down on Why Diets Fail. We're going down on Why Diets Fail? Sucking their dick. And that brings me to my third and final point. Shit. I gotta sneeze. I think. Stop scrolling your PhD feed. It's episode 4, PhD.
This is Fox 5 breaking news. Now your president, Mr. Trump.
Layne Norton
is one of the finest people that I've ever known. He's an outstanding intellect, an outstanding
scientist. It's episode 5 of Why Diets Fail, How Not to Fail. Put the flies down, you fat fuck! It's episode 6, Why Diets Fail. Alright guys, today we're going to talk about part of the diet after the diet, and we're going to address reverse dieting. What it is, how to do it, and is it for you? Let's get into it. So what is reverse dieting? Well, the purpose of reverse dieting is to slowly add calories to restore your metabolic rate, but try to minimize fat gain as much as possible. So who is it for? We discussed last video that if you get to the end of your diet and you can take your calories to your actual maintenance, that if you're comfortable with that, that's fine to stay there and you can maintain your weight. But what if your maintenance is a calorie level that you really hate and it's unsustainable for you? Well, then reverse dieting might be for you. How do you do it? Well, in general, there's no one way to do this. And I want to be clear, there's no scientific data on reverse dieting. This is all my experiences with clients. Now, I've worked with over 1,700 people in the last 14 years. So I have a pretty large data set, but I don't want to make it sound like what I'm telling you guys is set in stone. This is just based off my experiences. In general, if your goal is to absolutely minimize your weight regain, so you want to keep as much of your fat loss as you can, but still increase your calories. Typically, the way I do that is when you hit the end of a diet, I take calories to your current maintenance, okay? And this is something that's been kind of hotly debated amongst some experts in the field, is they will say, well, take your calories up to maintenance at the end of a diet. And they think that somehow that is different than what I'm recommending. If we're talking about your actual maintenance, I completely agree. There's no reason to stay in a deficit longer. It's time to get out. But I think a lot of times what they're talking about is your predicted maintenance. And as we saw in some of the early episodes, especially with the Biggest Loser data set, your predicted maintenance is going to be way higher than what your actual maintenance is at the end of a diet. So if they're talking about going up to your predicted maintenance, I strongly disagree unless you're okay with gaining some fat. Now again, if you get to the end of a diet and you feel really terrible, you want to feel better faster, you don't mind if you gain back some body fat, you just want to feel better, then certainly you can be more aggressive with your calorie increases. But if you're someone who really wants to keep as much of that fat loss as you can and minimize any fat regain, then what I suggest is a conservative reverse diet. And the first step is to take your calories to your actual maintenance. Now, if you've been tracking your body weight and you've also been tracking your calorie intake, you can kind of work out what that is. And I talk about how to do that in not only the Complete Contest Prep Guide, but also my new book that's coming out soon called Fat Loss Forever. I work out exactly how to do that. If you don't want to do that, you can use something like the Mueller equation to determine what your current maintenance should be. But again, these equations tend to overestimate your metabolic rate if you've been on a diet for a long period of time. Go up to your actual maintenance And then what do I recommend? Well, usually what I recommend is increasing your carbohydrate and fat intake by 2 to 10% per week. So if you took your calories up to your maintenance level, and let's say your maintenance level is 150 grams of carbohydrates and 50 grams of fat, and you were on a conservative reverse and you wanted to add 5% the following week. Well, 5% would be about 7.5 grams of carbs. You could round that up to 10 if you want, and about 2.5 grams of fat. So you could add 10 grams of carbs, 5 to 10 grams of carbs, and 2 to 3 grams of fat. That doesn't seem like a lot, and it's not. If you do that for 10 weeks and you're able to add that much every 10 weeks, now you're up 35, 40 grams of carbs and 20, 25 grams of fat. That is a significant increase. So a lot of what people will say is, well, that's so silly. You can't really add 10 grams of carbs and 2 grams of fat. That's so small. It is small, but again, you're looking at the progress over time. Now, you don't have to go that slow. For example, if you're maintaining your weight or even losing some weight, you could be a little bit more aggressive. You could choose to go closer to the 10% side. But again, how much you add is going to be dependent on how important it is for you to retain your leanness to prevent fat gain versus how quickly you want to be able to eat more calories. So if you're somebody who you absolutely want to gain the minimum amount of body fat possible, maybe you're going to stay under 5% additions of carbohydrates and fats every week. If you're somebody who says, you know what, I don't want to gain a bunch of fat back, but I really want to feel better a little bit faster, maybe you're going to be over 5% and closer to that 10% mark. Again, go to maintenance and then determine how quickly you want to go on your reverse. People ask me, should I add my protein? If your protein's already sufficient, you probably don't need to add it, especially as you're adding more calories in. Calories are protein sparing, so you actually don't even need as much protein when you're adding calories back in. Now, weight gain. Everyone responds to a reverse diet differently in my experience. Now, a lot of this tends to be associated with adherence. If you can adhere to it and you're going conservatively, your amount of weight gain is probably going to be pretty minimal. But obviously you finished a diet. Maybe you want to be a little bit looser with tracking. You're tired of being so restrictive. That's okay. Just understand that the more loose you are with adherence and the looser you track, the more likely chance there is that you're going to make some mistakes and you could gain some weight. So as long as you have that internal dialogue and conversation with yourself, that's okay. But assuming you're having perfect adherence, and typically the people who I find do their best on reverse diets are people who kind of are still in that really focused mindset as they're going into their reverse. If you do gain weight, which does happen, and a lot of people are going to gain some weight when they're reversing. Again, the point is not to lose weight. The point is to minimize weight regain. Well, don't necessarily keep adding calories. If you find your weight jumped up for a week, hold steady for a week or two, wait for it to settle. So a lot of times it'll come back down, and then you can continue with additions. A lot of people, what I used to say was, continue to reverse until you linearly start gaining weight. Well, I don't really think that so much anymore because weight gain can be kind of a stair step. So if you're reversing and adding calories, a lot of times what will happen is you'll be going along, not gaining any weight, and then boom, you gain like a pound or two. And then a lot of people say, oh my God, well that means I've hit my maximum amount of calories I can take in. Well, not really. Maybe you hit your maximum calories for that body fat level. But if you keep going, you find that your weight will usually plateau and you can keep going and then boom, I jump up again. And even as you're kind of linearly increasing calories, because this stuff isn't perfect. It's not like absolute math equations. And a lot of that probably has to do with NEAT and changes in your basal metabolic rate. In fact, I've observed some people who actually do lose a significant amount of weight when they reverse diet. I had one person in particular who I took from 175 grams of carbs and 60 grams of fat to over 400 grams of carbohydrate and over 80 grams of fat, and they actually lost 5 pounds in that time period. Now, do I think they're defying the laws of thermodynamics? No, of course not. What I think is happening is their increase in basal metabolic rate and NEAT must be exceeding the amount of calories that they're adding in. I'm sure we'll be able to explain these phenomena more in the coming years, but right now we just don't have that data. So just because you gain weight doesn't mean you need to stop reversing. If you gain weight, hold steady for a week or two, make sure it plateaus and it levels out. Sometimes it'll come back down, and then you can continue with your progress. Now, how long should you do it for? That really depends. I would say keep going until you hit a calorie level that you're comfortable with, as well as a body fat level that you're comfortable with. You know, I had a client who was an IFBB Bikini Pro, and she felt really good. She would only gain about 4 or 5 pounds after competing at a very lean body fat. So she was still very lean in the off season. She'd only gained like 4 or 5 pounds, and she was comfortable at about 200 grams of carbohydrate and 50 to 60 grams of fat per day. She found that to be a very sustainable lifestyle, and it gave her enough flexibility to enjoy herself, but she would stay lean at that intake. So for her, that was as high as we wanted to go. We could have pushed for more, but for what? There wouldn't be any point. She's already lean. She's happy with her physique. We keep her there. But also, if you're somebody who, you have a lot of weight to lose and you're dieting down and you find that you kind of tap out what you can lose, you're down to very low calories, not losing weight. Even if you've got more weight to lose, it might be time to do a reverse diet to get your metabolic rate back up. Why would a reverse be important for this? Well, again, think about the body's self-defense system, the 3-pronged attack we talked about, right? Every time you diet, you're activating that. Well, if we can reverse diet, minimize fat regain, but also provide ourselves with a small calorie surplus, what we're telling our body is, hey, we're not in famine anymore. We've got enough food. So hopefully when we go to diet back down, it can be more effective. So again, reverse dieting isn't magic. It's not an end-all be-all solution, but it does have really good benefits for certain people, especially those who would like to get their calories a little bit higher, but not gain a bunch of body fat. So that's kind of the long and short of it. Again, there's no set way to do this. In general, increase carbohydrates and fats 2 to 10% per week, depending on how conservative you want to be and depending on how your body responds. I also have another video out where I go really into depth in this. It's a little bit old. It's about 5 years old, but I'll link it as well so you guys can see that video. It's my video log 24 on reverse dieting. So again, it's just a tool. I don't want to sell it as being something that it's not. But when we say maintaining weight loss or maintenance of weight loss, a lot of people talk about that as it's something that everybody should be able to do. But what if you're maintaining your body weight on 12 or 1,300 calories a day? That doesn't really give you much flexibility. Holly's a great example. Holly went from 1,400 calories at the end of her diet last year to about 1,900 calories during a reverse diet and didn't gain basically any weight. Now, if she overate on her macros by 300 calories when she was at the bottom, when she was at that 1,400 calories, well, that's a 20% overage over her calories. Whereas if she overate by 300 calories when she was on 1,900 calories, that's much less, right? So the proportion of overeating, it's not going to cause as much damage in terms of fat gain if you're at a higher calorie intake for your maintenance calories. That's why this is so useful, because it allows you to have more flexibility in your life. But again, if you find that you're at a calorie level that you can sustain for your life and your lifestyle, and you're happy with your body fat there, then that's fine to just maintain. You don't have to reverse diet. But if you'd like to get your calories higher, reverse dieting is an option. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video series. I think you're really gonna like my book that's coming out here in a few weeks called Fat Loss Forever, where I go through and break all this stuff down in super grave detail. I mean, it will be a guide for anybody who wants to lose weight and keep it off, and it will show you how to do it in a step-by-step manner and give you all the tools to lose it and keep it off. I hope you've enjoyed this series. If you guys like it, please like, subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you next time with some more educational content. Thanks, guys. I'm out.